Welcome to Rossman Radio, the podcast where we dive deep into the journeys of entrepreneurs, founders, and e-commerce brands that are breaking through the noise and scaling like never before. I'm Elise, and Rossman Media is a trend-forward social media agency specializing in going viral and delivering 10x returns for the brands that we work with. Each week, I'll sit down with industry disruptors to talk about the highs, the lows, and the exact strategies that help them grow from their first sale to multi-million-dollar milestones. If you're ready to unlock what it really takes to win on social, build a community, and multiply your revenue, then you're in the right place. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to Rossman Radio, where we dive deep with entrepreneurs, creators, and visionaries building brands that matter. I'm Rob Nichols. Today, we're thrilled to have with us Thatcher Wine, founder and CEO of Juniper Books and author For the Love of Books and the 12 Monotests. Thatcher, thanks so much for joining us. So tell me a little bit about how Juniper Books got started. What was your vision for the company and how did you get it off the ground?
So it's amazing. It's been almost 25 years. And going back to the beginning of the company, it wasn't really a business I planned on starting. It's more of a hobby I was kind of doing in between careers. I had been in the tech business and was director of business development, and I had an early internet company that built websites, and I'd started my own online customer service company, and that went out of business. I'd raised some venture money, built a team, built a product, had it for about 2 years, and then in 2001, couldn't raise any more money, and it was a difficult environment back then. And I started selling books on the side as a hobby. I loved books, loved reading, collecting, organizing my bookshelves. I didn't know that was like an unusual thing necessarily. And one thing led to another. I just kept doing it, kept buying more books at, estate sales and antique auctions, and eventually, entire bookstores inventory and putting them online, and turned it into a business. And then a few years into that, somebody asked, a friend of the family asked if I could curate a library for their house. They had some bookshelves they wanted to fill, and kind of my niche was born. So there wasn't really a business plan back then. It was really more, going from kind of one thing to another, one customer at a time, one book at a time, very much. And I love that it was very like tactile and a physical product. I was kind of burnt out on, staring at screens before it was cool. And so here I am, over the years, we've evolved the business a lot. So the biggest part of the business now involves these book jackets that I invented around 2008. So about 7 years into the business, and then kind of launched a whole product line around, book sets that can make up a beautiful design across your shelves. And some of our most popular products these days are things like Harry Potter, Lord of the Rings, Jane Austen, and then some super contemporary authors like Sarah J. Maas, who in Pierce Brown, the Red Rising series. So we're very much like in the kind of pop culture collectible space now, which is very different from where we started with rare books.
Completely. It's always, fulfilling for us to talk to people who start their own businesses based on their passions, because it's like I think it's the right way to go about it. You're starting with something that you care about and that you hope can be a good business, but it's really trying to figure out how do you promote it, and how do you build a workable business, a feasible business around something that you actually care about. And I feel like a lot of businesses start out some way with, it's just like they see an opportunity. They may not really care too much about it, but they go after money and the growth first rather than the opposite. For you, it sounds like you kind of stumbled on something that we see a lot today when we're designing, not to connect like the literary world or what you do with something as like as shallow as advertising, but there's a lot of focus on personalization, right? Like your bookshelf and like your physical media collection or whatever is a reflection on your own personal tastes. And similar to your jackets, you're designing something that's more than just having the set of Harry Potter on the shelf. It's a design that's unique to this person's home. How do you think that kind of demand for that kind of product has changed since you've started?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good point about starting the business from a personal passion and a hobby. And I think that does track, what we're able to do, like as entrepreneurs and, marketers in the world, is like to find people can connect much more easily over the internet, to find like-minded, people and companies, and patronize those businesses that, share similar ideas and interests. And, I think over the years, I will say, so I thought, all my friends in the tech world thought I was crazy, back then. They were like, didn't you get the memo that printed books are going to, become ancient artifacts? It's all going to be about ebooks and all that. Why would you bother with books? And I knew from my own personal interest, I loved books. I loved holding a printed book. I wasn't, that interested after spending a day looking at screens to then, go home and look at another screen and read a book. I will say though, however you're reading is a good thing. I don't have anything against the Kindle if like that's the only way you consume your books. I do think that's important these days, but I'm a personal fan of print. Yeah, I think, we've, there are a lot, like our business is a niche business, right? I'm not trying to get everybody in the world to have a, set of books on their shelves. It would be great, but for most people, the regular book that you can buy at Barnes and Noble or Amazon is just fine, right? So people are consuming the content or, for the entertainment value. They don't also need the collectible, or the artistic representation across their shelves. Our business has really benefited in the past few years of, the world becoming more visual and people being able to share, what their passions and interests are on their shelves, like, books behind me, where you can really tell the story of who you are and express that to the world, like through social media or a Zoom call, things like that. So, I think it's really, marketing our business. We found a lot of opportunities to connect with influencers and just share what we do on Instagram and have it really resonate with people and occasionally go viral, which has been great.
That's awesome. Yeah, as an aside, I remember working at Borders and having like we had, you've got a store full of books, and then we had like one locked e-reader in the center. It was like in its own dungeon, and it was some weird partnership with Sony at the time, and I feel like it was like a microcosm of how the public perceived e-readers at the time. Like, yeah, people own Kindles, but like no one's going up to the e-reader in the middle of a bookstore. It was like it was like collecting
That's not
dust.
why they came here.
Yeah, no, totally. But I think you touched on something interesting, which is that a lot of brands, it's not about this mass appeal, especially for smaller brands starting out. It's about finding that passionate, whether you want to call it fan base or that passionate audience that really is into what you're doing. My question, I guess, is how do you find those people? How do you through your own, like, your own business plan, your digital marketing, how do you go and find the people who really do care about design and the aesthetics and what Juniper does?
That's a great question, and it's still like a little bit mysterious to me, to be honest. And I look back at like our history and how we really didn't do much marketing at all for years, and people found us. Like, so that's the real mysterious part, like how we were able to get so much of a following and traction. Sort of the halfway point of our, existence. In the first few years, it was very much just like, eBay, Amazon. There's a company called AB Books. Like we sold a lot through those platforms. So that was very much about just like listing, here's our entire catalog, and book collectors and people searching actively for those books to come to us. And then when we rolled out the product line that I mentioned, and some of the first few products were like an Ernest Hemingway set, a cookbook set, a Jane Austen set. We really didn't do too much marketing. We relied a lot on PR in those days, and got some great press, like in the New York Times and Wall Street Journal. CBS Sunday Morning did a feature. Gwyneth Paltrow wrote about us, like back when Goop was just a newsletter, before it was really a website. And so there was some, I think you'd call it the early adopter, phase. People who were looking for things that were on the cutting edge of design and literature, and maybe who had that same feeling that I did, that printed books shouldn't be going away. So, we as consumers, we should be supporting businesses that are doing their part to, keep print alive. So they found us, and I had people that would clip like the New York Times article that we were in, and call me 3 years later, and then they'd be like, "I've been waiting until my house was finished, or until I built my dream library to call you," and then curated a collection for them. And I'd say it's shifted more recently. It's a lot more competitive, especially in the 2020s. And we're having to do a lot more work to figure out how to find that audience. It's just a lot noisier. So we have a combination of channels from social media. We focus on Instagram, but we're just recently getting started a little bit more on TikTok. And there's a very active book talk community on there. So we're interested to see how that goes. And, we also invest a lot in kind of keeping our customers happy. Communicating with them, we use Klaviyo. We have a loyalty program we introduced last year. So experimenting with, giving rewards and points, and really encouraging customers to buy books, share them online, tell their friends about them, and, try to, realistically keep our costs of acquisition down just by, keeping those customers that we've made happy, even happier.
Nice. Yeah, I think that earned media portion is definitely huge. I think that gives you some like even unplanned, SEO down the road, especially from those higher authority sites like that, like this, where it's like people will find you when they're looking for, related searches, as long as that's still up. Do you, you mentioned going viral a little bit, you mentioned getting started on TikTok. Have you found that there's a particular type of content that resonates with people, or has there been any one, or a couple of videos that you found that have really, really taken off?
It's always changing. So, when a few of our products have, really, like, we've experimented with, do we like show the design before the launch day, or do we kind of withhold that and preserve a little bit of the mystery? So a couple of times it's really worked out magically. We've really waited, and then it comes out, and then people everyone shares it, all at once. Oh my God, I can't believe how beautiful this is. Can't believe I can't afford it. It's a lot of commentary. Lately I've been really, impressed by like the influencer content, and I think, having somebody else say the words, instead of us about why they like our product, it just seems much more fresh, and seems to resonate with customers. I also think, sharing like social proof in ads, like reviews, has been resonating, really well recently. I think these days, especially, I mean, for years, people have been going to review sites or reading Reddit forums and stuff, but really putting that into an ad seems to be working well, and something we've tested out recently. In our advertising, I should say, we do some Google, some Meta, and we're going to dabble a little bit in Reddit in the next few months.
Yeah, I think that's the next step for a lot of brands that are reaching out to Rossman right now. It's how do I get on Reddit? At SciFed, people just say like, how do I get on Reddit? I was like, well, it's kind of an anti-brand environment, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
As something that, we get so much in the news about like zero-click searches and people looking up for answers on ChatGPT or on AI searches versus on Google, and I feel like that says more about Google than it does the adoption of AI. But the questions that we get a lot of are, how do we get on the channels where more like of those communities are? Where are the book talks of the world, and where do people actually go for opinions that they trust? And amazingly, that's a lot of Reddit. It's a lot of, it's people talking to people. The same way that influencer marketing is a person recommending something versus like a brand, even if it's content. I think that's what a lot of people are looking for too. So I think, it's a good strategy to try to get, where those communities are. You mentioned using influencers. How's that gone so far? Do you guys do like affiliate programs, or is it more just like a case by case basis with some select, book talkers? How's that going?
Yeah, we've tried a few different things. We do have an affiliate program. started on ShareASale and now moved over to AWin. And we also we're on Shopify, so we have a few people on Shopify collabs. I'd say the book market is interesting though. Like it's not like a lot of other products who, where those influencers have really built their business and are really have a very polished pitch about what they want and what they'll do for you. So I like that the book influencers are much more organic. They're mostly interested in, doing a trade for more books, to be honest, which is much better. We've encouraged them to join the affiliate program, but only a few of them have taken us up on it. Yeah, so I think, it seems very like organic and natural, and like within I always say within our brand, we've got, Juniper Books, but then we've got like 200 other brands for every single author, has their own following and style and things that they're known for. So understanding the intricacies of those niche markets and fandoms, it's better done essentially by an influencer. We have some, very passionate fans of the authors and series in our staff, but the influencers are much better at kind of speaking the language, and we'd love to reward them if they do want to join the affiliate program too.
Completely, yeah. And we get a lot of that too, where half the time it's more about the content than the influencers following. It's just like, I know that they do this all the time, so they can do it better than me. So like, let's try to use that to get more of that social content too. This is a pretty standard interview question for you, but what do you think your biggest challenge is right now? As a smaller brand.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say it's probably AI. And we're going to start working on like a answer engine optimization, which is a word I didn't even know until very recently. I think the future, like you said, I mean, there's people do these searches on Google and then don't click on anything. They just read the, AI summary. People are going to be going to ChatGPT or whatever AI they use and just saying, what should I get my niece? My best friend loves Harry Potter. What's the gift this year? Or my friend's into books. I'm not like, what's a good thoughtful gift for them? Things like that, are going to be the questions that people are going to their personal shopper AI assistant for. And we have to, optimize our site, and as well as like have a strategy to kind of shape the content as much as we can on Reddit and other places that feed into those AI engines. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge, and I think it's really going to take off this holiday season.
I think
bigger after that.
I think so too. I think that you're completely right, and this is something that we're probably going to talk about on this show. For people are going to get tired of it for now, but like when we get into Black Friday, Cyber Monday, you're right. People are literally going to ask AI for gift ideas, which I can't fault them for. Some people are hard to give. Google is not always my friend when it comes to idea generation, but that makes it all the more important that brands are like you mentioned, that their sites are optimized for LLMs, and that everything is it's a separate SEO strategy, really. It's a GEO, AI SEO, whatever we're calling it these days. Like
more acronyms for me to learn. Okay.
I know. I stood up the other day with the GEO. I was like, do they mean geography? No, it's like, I don't know. But it's gonna be a common question as we head into the holiday season. But I think that you guys have built something really special. I love the fact that you started with your passion and that have come on and really built it into your way to make your living. And I think that's something that a lot of people aspire to do. So thanks so much, Thatcher, for joining us on the show. If you want to check out and support what Thatcher's doing, visit juniperbooks.com. That's Juniper, JUNIPER books.com.
Great. Thanks for having me on. It's a really fun conversation. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Thatcher.